do you remember that when we have something like this and this one, and we said this one is the domain? Do you remember we said this one is the domain and this is codomain, right? And also this is the X values and this is what Y values. And the last name we also gave to this was, this is independent and this is what? Dependent. All right. So in the same vein, we know the domain is what? X values. And the codomain is what? Y values. And in this case, when we have the domain, the codomain to be equal to the range, in this case, the range is the same as what? The codomain here. For that matter, all Y values becomes what? All these values becomes the range. So we can associate range to what? Y. Y should be equal to range, and we can also call the domain to be equal to what? X. Is that okay? What I want to try to put across is, what I'm trying to put across is, when we are solving for the domain, we were solving or taking into consideration the X values. But here is the case, we are going to solve for what? The range. So we are going to consider only the Y values. All right. So let's start with the question 1, solving some examples. If you have f of x to be equal to x plus 2, as usual, we are starting with a linear function. And as we said, a linear function is a function with only one variable. And the variable, the exponent of the variable is what? 1. So the variable that we have here is what? X. And the exponent of x is what? 1. All right. So this one is what? A linear function. Okay, let's solve for the range of this function. So we are going to equate f of x. So let f of x to be equal to what? Y. And if f of x is equal to y, the equation is going to be y is equal to x plus what? 2. And then what this simply means is that any value that we substitute in place of what? In place of x, you are going to get a different value of what? Y. Any value that we substitute, you're going to get a different value of what? Y. But let's plot this graphically. How do we plot this graphically? Assuming x is equal to 0. When x is equal to 0, we are going to get y to be equal to positive 2, right? So x is 0, y is positive 2. So the vertex, when you say vertex, is where they meet. So the vertex will be equal to x is 0 and y is 2. Now let's plot this one. So plotting this, we are going to get something like this. X is 0, y is positive 2. So y is positive 2, 1, 2. 1 and 2, 1, 2. So we get like this. And we draw, because it's a linear, it slopes downward from right to left. So we are going to pass it through positive 2 like this. And if you are asked to write the range of this function, so the range of this function is negative infinity to what? Positive infinity, because this one goes to what? Negative infinity for y. This is y, negative y. And this is what? This one goes to positive infinity for what? Y also. So the range is negative infinity to positive infinity. And as I told you in the domain, every linear function that you have and you're asked to find the domain or find the range, you are always going to get negative infinity to what? Positive infinity. So that one, the answer is already known. We are not going to waste much time there. Now let's move on to something that the answer differs. The answer comes in different forms. So question 2, let's look at when we have the power, the exponent to be what? Let's say 2 in a quadratic form. So when we have f of x is equal to x squared, like this, which is a quadratic. And anytime we have a quadratic, the graph is a parabola. What I meant by that is, when we have a graph like this, when x is squared, it's either we have something like this or we have something like that. Okay, depending on the sign of the x value. All right. Now, I want you to take notice of this. What I want you to take notice of is, note anytime you have a question that is in quadratic form, I want you to know this. Write it somewhere, maybe on your question paper. Note the x value, x squared, is what? Is it positive or negative? It's positive, right? So when it is positive, it means it can hold water. This is not 7, this is positive. Positive. So when it is positive, it simply means that our graph is going to open top. And the value of y is what? Will be 0. So it's going to be like this. It's going to be like this one. Just like this. So this one goes here and this one goes there. And if you're asked to find the range of this function, the range of this function is going to be 0, because the vertex, when I write the vertex, I'm going to get something like this. The vertex to be equal to 0 and what? 0. So the range of this function is going to be 0 to positive infinity. 0 to positive infinity. We use brackets here because we know the vertex is what? 0. This side is 0. That's why we are using this bracket. And we are using this appearances because we don't know up to what number. That is why it's what? Positive infinity. All right. Now let's solve a couple of questions under quadratic, just to be able to understand this. So let's say question 3. When you have question 3 to be like f of x is equal to x squared minus 4, like this. Okay, the first thing to do, or the first thing we want to do, is to equate f of x to be equal to what? Y. So let f of x to be equal to what? Y. And then now we have y is equal to x squared minus 4. And then let's take notice of these items. So note, our notes, please, when you are solving the question, you don't need to write this, but I want you to take into consideration before you can draw the graph. So what is the value of our x squared? Is it positive or negative? It's positive. So it means our graph will look like this, right? Okay, like u. Now, the next item, when x is equal to 0, what will be the value of y? Y will be equal to minus 4. Is that okay? When x is equal to 0, so x is equal to 0. When x is equal to 0, the value of y will be equal to minus 4. Now we have our values. Now let's plot the graph. So our graph is going to look like this. This is our x values, and this is what? Our y values. And y is negative 4, so we have minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. And x is 0, so it will be on this line. It means that the vertex, our vertex, you don't need to write the vertex, but I'm just writing it for you to understand. You don't need to write them though. The vertex is going to be 0 and what? 4. Vertex, I mean the turning point, the minimum point or the maximum point is called the vertex. So in this case, our vertex is going to be this. So when we plot the graph, you're going to get something like this. The turning point is going to be minus 4. Now, let me use this one. The turning point is going to be minus 4. Minus 4. So, and the x value is positive, so it's going to be U-shaped. So we are going to draw our curve like this. And it will turn at negative 4. It goes up like that. Is that okay? All right. So at the end, our range of this function, if you're asked to write the range of this function is going to be range of the function is going to be, because we know it's the minimum point is minus 4, and the x value, y values goes to positive infinity. Positive infinity. So we write it like this. We are using this bracket because we know it is what? Minus 4 here. And then we write positive infinity because this one goes to what? Positive infinity for what? Y. Mind you, When we are solving for the domain, we consider only x values. When we are solving for range, we consider only the y values. Is that okay? Now let's solve one or two more questions under quadratic, and then we move on to polynomial. So question 4. Let's say our question 4 is like this. When we have f of x to be equal to 2 minus x squared, 2 minus x squared. As usual, the first way to solve this is to equate f of x to be equal to what? Y. So we have y is equal to 2 minus x squared. Okay, now let's take into consideration the factors. So note, x squared is equal to what? This time it is negative, right? So it's not going to be u, but it's going to be like in the form of n, small n. Okay. And then we can also consider when x is equal to 0, what will be the value of y? Y will be equal to what? 2. What I mean by when x is equal to 0 is we have y is equal to 2 minus x. And we are saying that when x is equal to 0, we're going to have y is equal to 2 minus 0, right? And y is equal to 2. Anytime you assume x is equal to 0, you should think like this. You should solve it like this. Okay. Now that we know when x is equal to 0, y is equal to positive 2. Now let's try to plot this graph. Mind you, we can only write, let's always try to write a range of a function after plotting the graph. Is that okay? All right. So we are going to have our vertical line and horizontal line. This is our x values and this is y values and their intersection. Okay. So since x squared is negative, it means it's going to be something like this. All right. And then when y is x is 0, y is positive 2. So positive 2 will be 1, 2. Let's say positive 2 will be here, right? And then the sign of x squared is negative, so it will be like this. Okay, like this. Just like this. And the range, if you're asked to write the range for this, the range of this function is negative infinity, because this one is negative infinity. It goes to negative infinity. But the minimum point or the maximum point is what? Positive 2 for y. So positive 2 for y. Use this bracket because we know the value of what? Positive 2. Unlike the linear function always goes like this, and we don't know where this one goes, and we don't know this one goes. That's why it's positive infinity to negative infinity. But for the quadratic, since we already know where they are going, the turning point, in this case, the turning point is what? Positive 2. So the y values of this graph is what? Minus infinity to positive 2. All right, last question under this. Last question. So let's say question 5. Question 5 for this one. When we have f of x let's say f of x to be equal to x squared, complete quadratic question, plus 4. Like this. If you have a question like this, how do we solve it? All right. This, we are going to introduce something new. But before that, let's try to equate. So let f of x to be equal to what? Y. And we have our y to be equal to x squared minus 2x plus 4. Okay? Now, if you want to note, we can only note 2 things out of the 3. We always consider 3 things, right? So note, what is the sign of x squared? It's positive. Okay. What is the value of x? We don't know. What is the value of y? We don't know. So we are going to solve for the value of x and solve for the value of y to get the vertex before we can plot this graph. Is that okay? Now, how do we do that? We can only do that by finding the value of x and y. And how to find the value of x? Anytime you have a complete quadratic question like this is x should be equal to minus b divided by 2a, okay? Anytime you have a complete question like this, the value of x can be determined by minus b divided by 2a. And the equation, from the equation, we know this one is a, this one is b, and this one is what? C. Let's not forget about that. So we are going to have our solution as x is equal to minus 2 divided by 2 times 1. A is 1. So at the end, we have positive 2 divided by 2, and our x is what? 1. So x is equal to 1. Now we know our x is 1. What is our y? So we are going to substitute x is equal to 1 into the equation y. So we have y is equal to, we are going to have y is equal to 1 square minus 2, 1 plus 4. Okay, then we solve this one. Then we get the value of y. 1 minus 2 plus 4. What do we get? We are going to get our answer to be positive 3. So y is equal to positive 3. In this case, y is 3. Now let's draw the graph. So drawing this graph, you are going to get something like this. Okay. This is our y values, and this is our x values. Now, the sign of x squared is positive, so it's going to be in the form of what? U shape. And then x value is 1. So x value is 1, let's say 1 here, positive 1. Y value is positive 3, so we go top 1, 2, 3. So when you plot this, where would they meet? They will meet here, right? So if they meet here, it simply means that will be the turning point for this graph. Is that okay? All right, if that is the turning point for this graph, then we draw our x squared, which is positive, and it's going to be in the form of what? U shape. So we are going to have it like this. Go up, and this one go up. And the range for this is going to be, the range of the function is going to be, we know is positive 3 to positive infinity. That will be the range for this. So when you have, take a look at this, we have two quadratic questions in two different forms. This is a complete quadratic whereby we have A, B, C, and what? A, B, and what? C in the question. And in this case, we have only A and what? C. When there is B in part of the question, then we have to solve for X and Y values. But when we have only A and C, we can equate X to be equal to what? 0. Now, last question. I know I said last question to that, but let's solve another one under complete question of quadratic. So let's say we have number 6, right? Number 6. We have f of x to be equal to x squared plus 4x plus 2. Okay, now let's solve this. Let f of x to be equal to y. So we have y is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 2. And then we note our items. 3 items, right? X squared, what is the sign of x squared? It's positive, right? So when it is positive, you're going to get something like U shape. Okay, what is the value of x? We don't know. What is the value of y? We don't know. So let's go and look for the value of x and the value of y. And in the box, we have A, B, and C. We are going to solve x by using the formula. And the formula says that x is equal to minus b divided by what? 2a. Okay, now x is equal to minus b. B is what? 4 divided by 2a. 2 times 1. Okay? All right. Now we are going to have x is equal to minus 4 divided by 2. And we get x to be equal to minus 2. So we know our x to be minus 2 here. Now, how do we find our y? Y can be found by substituting minus 2 into the equation. So we are going to have y is equal to minus 2 square plus 4, 2 plus 2. And at the end, we have positive 4. This is minus. Positive 4 minus 8 plus 2. And our answer is what? Minus 2 also. So our vertex is minus 2, minus 2. Please, is that okay? All right. Now, let's try to draw our graph. So the graph is going to be like this. Forget about how it looks like. I know it's not perfect. Anyway. Okay. So we have this is x and this is what? Y. And this is the vertex. So positive 2 for negative 2 for x is minus 2, right? And negative 2 for y is minus 1, minus 2, minus 2 here. So at the end, they will meet somewhere here, right? And if they meet here, what is the sign for x squared? X squared is what? Positive. And if it is positive, it's in the form of U shape. So we're going to draw our U shape like this, and the 10 here goes like this. Okay? All right. Now, the range of this function is going to be positive 2, negative 2. So we know our negative 2 and the parentheses to be positive, because this one goes to positive infinity for what? Y. Positive infinity for y. So that is it. So simple. All right. No.